Hey guys, welcome back to the Forge. Today we are continuing our basic blacksmithing, getting started blacksmithing series here on the channel. If you have not watched the last video on tools to get started blacksmithing and some tools you didn't think about, check that video out if you do not have an anvil or a hard piece of steel to work on or a forge. Kind of went through some basics. We will be building a forge in a later video and really like going into the nitty gritty of like getting started from bare bones to working shop. But today we're going to be going, like I said, continuing into our basic series. We're going to be making a hook. We're going to be using 1/4" square bar. You can use about as much length as you would like depending on the size of your hook. We're going to make a hook about that long, roughly. You know, it's just going to be just a basic J hook, nothing real fancy. Glad the wind's blowing today. But we're going to cut it real quick with a hacksaw, get the forge lit and getting it heated up, and start hammering on some metal. Stay tuned. They tighten that up a little bit. All right guys, before we get going, this is a little teaching tool that I keep up here to show students on the steps to make a hook. I did miss the one spot because I forgot to just show it drawn out square, but I'm gonna come in here close, and the first thing we're gonna do is draw the material out in a square, and then we're gonna round it out. So that'll be our first step. I'm gonna get the metal in the forge and we're gonna start hammering. Looks like something got left in the forge from the other day when we were up here working. Get that out. Set that right out here. Forge ain't quite up to temperature yet, but metal will be getting good to hot just in a second. Okay guys, this right here is how the majority of the video will be, is just facing the anvil so you can see everything that I'm doing. So I'm gonna get a good firm grip on this. If you have to use a pair of vice grips, that's fine, but all I'm doing is drawing this point out. As you can see, I'm only working two sides. When I get to the end, I slightly angle down my hammer to start forming the tip. Now, as you get better at making hooks, all I'm doing is just straightening everything up, because I was talking instead of hitting. As you get faster at making a hook, you can hammer a hook out. I use, whenever I'm not teaching, and hammer a hook out completely in about 2 to 3 heats. And that's me kind of taking my time. If I rush it, I can make the hook part, the finial, and all that within 1 heat. Now I'm going to keep this kind of raw, only cutting out just bits and pieces, but I really want you to see the process of everything going on. I don't want to cut anything out for you. So back out. Now I'm just using some 1/2-inch square bar, or not 1/2-inch square bar, 1/4-inch square bar. You can make them out of 1/2 inch, it's just a lot of work. But if you're making some beefier hooks for a project, now, I'm going to draw this out to a pretty fine point, but I'm going to be careful on the end not to hammer too hard, because as that tip starts forming, there we go, you can crush it and it'll quilt over. Since it's going to be the finial, it's not too awful end of the world if that happens, but you want to keep from that. Change out my tongs. Now, as I was saying, if you don't have a pair of tongs, and I said in my last video, but just in case, if you can just get you a pair of vice grips, or I've always called them vice grips, just a cheap pair. This is just a small cheap pair from Harbor Freight. This is a cheap pair. I don't actually know where I got them, but they're not cheap, they're Craftsman. Some of the older Craftsmans, but you can find them at yard sales or anywhere to be able to get started. But you do need something, unless you want to hold a really long piece of steel, to alright, see, I'm just barely tapping. I got a little bit off on my piece here. But unless you want to hold a really long piece of steel, then get you a pair of vice grips so you can pull it in and out of the fire. Now again, I'm using a gas forge. If you're curious about them, they're not affiliated with me, but it is a Majestic forge I bought about 3 years ago. I'm gonna let that metal heat up a little bit. All right, guys, now we're gonna start rounding this out. As I showed, I hammered everything square. Okay, hope you can see that. Everything's square. Now I'm gonna turn it up on one of the corners, and I'm not hitting hard, I'm just tapping. Okay, then I go to my other corner and I tap it down. And all I'm doing is creating this finial that might be a little big, but I don't know, we'll play around with it. See if I can made that finial just a little bit bigger than what I wanted. Well, it'll be all right. We'll just make the hook all rounded too. It'll be all right. As I'll say in a ton of videos, there are no mistakes. It's a design change. So we've rounded this out. See if I can get it. Hopefully you can see that real clear. I like leaving the hammer marks in it, and I don't make it perfectly round because I like that texture. I just like that, I don't know, I like the hammer marks on it. It gives it character, makes it look real nice. Alrighty. Now we're going to work on that finial. So, might not be a perfectionist, but I do like things to be a little uniform. So we're going to work on the finial. I'm going to poke it over the edge a little bit, and I'm going to hammer it like this, like I'm kicking. And I'm just tapping it down. Now I'm going to hammer back on itself and raise it up like I've made a fish hook right here, okay? And I want to keep this as round as I can. I have messed these up before. And they be more oblong than they are round. Now, since I rounded out a little bit of where that hook is going to be, I'm going to round out the rest of it just to make it more uniform. If you don't have it right now at this point, go find you a coffee can, a cleaned out paint can. Do it based on your government's regulations of disposing of paint, a bucket, something to quench your material in. I don't really like plastic, but if you want to use plastic, you can. Just be careful. You could burn a hole through the bottom of it, of your bucket, or burn the side out or something like that. But use what you have and make it work. But you are going to need a quench tub with some water in it to quench this finial here in a second so we don't crush it. I'm just lining that up. So I'm gonna make this hook about that big. So I'm gonna round this out a little bit. And you can see I'm trying to taper it. I don't want it to have a sharp drop off where the hook goes into the rest of the body. So it's gonna be a decently sized hook, but I've got some things I can use it for. Now I'm going back in the fire. Now I have a quench tank behind me, and I have one over to the side, and I'm gonna have to do this a little quick, because once I quench it, I have to instantly go into making my hook. You don't want to quench it too many times, but all you're gonna quench, let me get my little finger pointer here. All you're gonna quench is this end right here. You do not go past that right there, okay? You don't quench up here. All you're doing is quenching just that tip, because you don't want to crush it. You will be doing a tiny bit of hitting on it, and you don't want to mess that up because you've worked hard on it, okay? While we're waiting on that to heat up, I made this to teach some people. I kept pointing at people's stuff and almost getting my hand hit, but I made a little hand to point at stuff. I don't know, it's kind of corny. I made it a few years ago and just kind of threw it together one day while I was killing time, but whenever I'd show people stuff, I was bad about pointing my hand in here and showing no hit here, and then I made this so I could point. I don't know, I just thought you might get a kick out of seeing it. It was a lot of fun. All right, so back to business at hand. I'm gonna go back here. I'm just gonna quench this tip. As you can see, just the tip. Now, I'm going right here and I'm just gonna start tapping. As you can see, I didn't go over the horn. I'm gonna tap it down, straighten it up, okay? Now I'm gonna go over the horn to straighten it up. Turn this, move this, there. Now you can see it. Now, I'm gonna go over here, move that out of my way, and round this out a little bit and do a tap on it. See, just a basic J hook. Now, the next step I'm gonna do is flip this around. This is where you're gonna really need your tongs, or if you're using a longer piece, you're gonna go ahead and need to cut this off. You can tell that I don't have this lined up, which is fine because we're gonna be putting a twist in it. But what I'm gonna do is grab it. I'm gonna bring it over here to the edge of the anvil, okay? And what I'm making, get that in the fire. What I'm gonna be making is, see if I can find it. That right there. I didn't clean this one up because a lot of times you can I didn't file it down because that's what it's gonna look like a lot of times when you're done. But you're gonna make this flat piece for where your nail or screw is gonna go. Now, I'm gonna square this up just a little bit. I'm not ready to, I wanna get a little bit more heat on it. But I'm gonna put about a little over, I don't know, a little over a quarter of an inch. You can kind of judge it how you want to. If you want a bigger area to maybe put 2 screws or whatever, I just need one big enough for one. Alright guys, I'm going to come out of the fire. I'm going to angle down, okay? You can see it's angling down. Get a better grip on this thing. Alright, I've got it angled down. I'm going to hit to set this corner. And then I'm going to hammer and raise up as I'm hammering. Now, I'm going to hammer flat, but then I'm going to start working to the left and to the right, or the right and to the left. And as you can see, I'm turning the metal. Because what all I'm doing is broadening this out. I want to keep some thickness to it, okay? Gonna clean it up a little bit. Now you can clean some of this up with files, and as I said in the first video, a cheap set of files you can pick up at Northern Tool or Harbor Freight for like under $20. I bought some the other day because I just needed some files. And you can get a cheap punch set at Northern Tool or Harbor Freight. I think it was like 10 bucks for the punch set that I'm going to be using, and it's like a set of like 8 or 10. As I said, if you haven't checked out the first video, check it out, because it tells you a lot of tools that a lot of people don't tell you need in the beginning. Everybody really just says you need a hard surface to hammer on, a hammer, something to hold your material with, and your a forge of some sort or a way to heat up your metal. We go in a little bit more detail about some tools to help make life a little easier. All right, so I'm just going to tap this down, just clean it up a little bit. I kind of like the shield look, you know, as it is. And right here, besides just a tiny bit of straightening, because I bent it somehow, is just a basic J-hook minus the twist. Now we're going to punch a hole in here, but as you can tell, it doesn't really fit over my Pritzl hole. So I'm going to show you a cheat that I'm coming up with. I'm going to use a tool that I have, but I'm actually going to be making something that's really neat. So I'm going to move you over to the vise. We're going to grab a twisting wrench, then we're going to get ready to put a good twist in this thing. All right, guys, so I'm going to show you a twisting wrench. Yes, it's just a crescent wrench, and I talk about this again like I said in the first video. One of the easiest tools to use for twisting. If you buy 2 of them cheap and you can weld, you can cut one handle off and weld it over here and then leave like a portion so you can clamp it in the vise and you've got 2 different tools. It's kind of a neat little deal. All right, let's get the hook out. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go up to about right there. I'm gonna grab my twisting wrench, tighten it down on it so it's good and tight. Watch out, that's the reason why I wear a glove on this hand, is so I don't burn myself. And I'm just gonna twist it. Get it lined up. Make sure everything's somewhat straight. You can always straighten it out when you get done. Now, if you don't have a set of punches, and you do have a drill and some drill bits, and you got a little center punch or something, you can drill a hole right here and call it done. And if I do a lot of production, sorry, use what you have, make it work. If I do a lot of production, then I'll drill them out. But as of right now, that's a basic J-hook. Just something very simple. It took us 10 or 15 minutes to do. Nothing major, you know, but you learn so much from this basic hook. So I'm gonna I'm gonna get everything set up to punch a hole, and let's knock this out. All right, guys, so you can see that my Pritzl hole here is just a little bit bigger than where the screw is gonna be on my top of my hook. So to punch the hole, I'm gonna have to get a little creative. Another phrase you're gonna hear me say a ton is use what you have and make it work. So what I'm gonna take is this nail header that I have, and I'm gonna lay it on my anvil. Actually, I might just do it over the hardy hole. Anyways, but that hole is just big enough for my punch. So what I'm gonna do is whenever I come out of the fire, after I show you how to get everything set up, I'm gonna bring this out and I'll actually punch the hole through this. And it makes it to where I'm not smushing my material down into the Pritzl hole. One of the things that I'm gonna try to make, and I've gotta sit down and do it, is I'm gonna make a plate that will fit over my Pritzl hole, and I can turn it to the size hole that I need and then punch my holes as I need them that way. I just haven't had a chance to sit down and drill that out yet. But as I said, use what you have, make it work. All right, let me go grab a punch real fast. All All right, guys, so the punch that I have is not the most ideal for this, but it does work. I've punched a few holes with this one before I decided to do the video. It does work. It's a little bit harder because it's a short punch, but you can do it. So let's get the metal out. Okay, this is where wearing a glove is very handy. Now, my hook's just a hair off on being where I need it, but I'll fix that later. And I'm just gonna tap, okay? I got the center, but I want it to bottom out on the other side. And as you can see, it's starting to do a little indentation. So what I'll do is tap it again. And then don't be afraid of the hammer. Don't, get used to the hammer being in your hand. It's an extension of who you are. Hold that punch good. I'm holding it like this because I'm trying to see and it's a smaller punch, but hit it. Don't just tap. You actually got to put a little bit of force behind it. Now, hit once and check. Now, that was a good one. All right. Now, I'll straighten up the hook once we get going. But you can see right there where that indentation's starting. So what I'm going to do on my next heat is when I come out, I'm going to be upside down. I'm going to come right here and I'm going to tap it back down. I want to kind of get that slug moving up and down a little bit. And then we'll straighten everything up. If you do not have a wooden mallet, I think my father-in-law found this one on like eBay or Amazon. It's a gavel. It does not work well for big stuff like, anything bigger than 3/8. But if you're just trying to tweak something, these work really well. And I also use the back of my brush. As I said in the first video, this channel is all about budget blacksmithing. And like I said before, use what you have, make it work. I have tapped many hooks with this brush and other brushes to kind of just get them realigned or kind of a little straightening in them. So, but you don't want to hit it with the steel part of your hammer once you get your twist in, because you can mess up your hook, or mess up your twist, I'm sorry. All right, so I'm coming over here. I know where that spot is because I can still see it lifted up. I'm gonna hit it, hit it, hit it, get one more time. All right, now you can see it's kind of bent the hook a little bit, but we can fix that. But if you look, you can see right there where we've started to knock our slug out. So I'm going to come back, hammer it back down on this side. And I'm sure there's people that can hammer these out faster than me. I like the proficientness of being able to just take my time with it, especially when you're learning. You want to be able to make sure it's going to be a good slug that comes out. So after this heat, I'm going to hammer it down, and then I'm going to get my tool, my nail header, get it set up where I need it. That fits in there perfect, and we're going to knock the slug out. Alrighty, flip that over. And all I'm doing is just working this metal, getting it to where everything is going to be where it pops out just perfect. So I'm going to, as you can see it really good now, where that slug is going to pop out on the other side, or pop out here in just a second. So we're going to get a good heat, and everything is about preparation. I'm getting my hardy tool where I need it. I'm going to bring it straight out, get everything lined up, and just hammer. Once I hit it and I feel it go down a little bit, I'm just going to keep driving. But hit once, and then when you feel it give down where it's going into the hole a little bit, then you can drive it in. But make sure you pay attention that your punch doesn't jump to another spot and you're driving something down in that don't need to go. I've messed up many hooks just because I got too cocky about it. All right. So going there, gonna hit, hit, hit. All right, we drove it home and we got the slug out. Did I catch it? We'll look and see. Now, we're still gonna have to straighten this up. As you can see, it bubbled it out just a little bit, but that's easy to fix. Very, very easy to fix. Alrighty. I'm gonna quench my tool off just so it's not hot. Put it right there. Alright. I almost grabbed this hook with my bare hands. It's still good and hot. Okay. Now, there's a little straightening we have to do on this, and I'm glad it did. So I've got to straighten it here, and there's a slight bend in it where the twist went in. So, put it back in the fire, gonna heat everything up. If you have access to like a log or something, and I'm just gonna tap it on my anvil and raise it up a little bit because it's just a tap. But if you can get you like, sorry, making sure someone wasn't getting my chickens. All right, so if you have access to a log or something, you can, and it's a really bad bend, take it over the log and hit it with a piece of wood. It'll straighten out and it won't really mess up your twist. If you hit it with metal on metal, it'll mess up your twist. But, come out of the fire, gonna tap that down, not gonna hit hard. Gonna make sure everything looks straight. I'm gonna take the back of this, like I said, the back of my brush. I'm gonna tap it a little bit, look at it, tap too far, tap too far. I'm gonna drop the metal. Listen, if you're a blacksmith that doesn't drop metal, I don't know what you're doing, but I think you're doing it wrong. Let me look at it. Yeah, we're a little off just a little bit, but that was because we did our twist a little too far. But besides just a tiny bit of tweaking, here is your, well, if I can get it unstuck, and I already know that it's off just a hair, it's gonna bother me until I fix it. But here is your basic J-hook. So, I'm gonna turn off the forge so you can hear me better. And then we're gonna talk about everything you learned in this process. Let's quench it off, cool it down so it's easy to handle, and let's talk about our processes. Okay guys, let's get real for a minute and talk about what you learned, because it was just a basic J-hook. And I know a lot of people's like, I want to make knives, I want to do this, I want to make a spear, I want to make, all these things. What's the deal with a basic hook? What you learned with a basic hook is how to draw metal out. So you learned how to make metal longer, you learned how to make a point, you learned how to round metal, you learned how to make an offset shoulder with half on, half off blows. That's what we did when we were making the spot for the eye hole. You learned how to punch a hole. Learned how to do a twist. And all of these basic things that you did with just this one project is going to further you in your blacksmithing career as becoming a blacksmith, whether you want to get paid with what you're doing or you just want to keep it as a hobby. But learning the basics first. I know a lot of guys that hopped in and said, I want to make knives. And they would make okay knives, and it took them years to get to where it's something that might only take you, a year, starting with the basics first. It took them years because they were still struggling with hammer control. They were still struggling with, having to draw the metal out and not really understanding what happens when the metal quilts over and things like that, and stuff that we'll get into in later videos. But just with a basic project like this, you have learned so many steps that in our next video when we go to make the leaf is going to help you make the leaf. And then from a leaf, I'm going to teach you how to make a hold down. And from a hold down, with all these basic things, we'll teach you how to make tools. When we go to talk about making a leaf, you learn how to draw, you learn how to fuller the metal out. So you learn how to make the metal longer, now you're going to learn how to make the metal wider. So in doing that, that's how you make a knife blade. That's how you make spearheads. That's how you make draw knives, adzes and froes and things like that, is you learn how to draw that, fuller that metal down. So you draw it out and make it longer to the length that you need it, then you fuller it out to make it wider, and then you learn how to do your bevels and everything. So I mean, but learning something just as basic as a hook right off the bat is going to teach you your hammer control. One thing that I will say, and I should have said it at the beginning, so sorry, is when you're hitting your metal, I want you to hit slow and hit hard. So when you go to hit, and I think I have a piece of wood around here. Thought I had a piece of wood around here. To help with your hammer control, well, it was just here. Get you a piece of wood. We'll figure it out. I'll show you with the brush. I'm not going to hit it hard. But get you a piece of 2x4, and I want you to cut it to, about, I don't know, a foot and a half to about a foot and a half long. And just pretend this was the 2x4, and I want you to draw some circles on it. And I want you to aim. Okay? So you're going to take your hammer and say there's a circle here, and you're going to hit. And you're going to hit slow, and you're just going to tap it at first. And then you're going to tap it at first. And then you're going to get to where you're hitting really hard. And you're going to aim for that one circle, and then you're going to aim for this circle. And then you're going to aim for this circle. And then you're going to start alternating your hits. So you're going to hit here, hit here, hit here. You just kind of get to where you can work fast. Speed comes with time, and you want to be very proficient on how you hit. So one of the tips that I want to leave you with is hit slow, but hit hard. I have a lot of first-time blacksmiths, whenever they come in, and apprentices and students or whatever, they'll come in and they'll get really high up here to hit. But when they come down, they go, and they're not doing anything. They're wasting all of that energy. Now, you want a little more finesse hits and some softer hits, like when we were making the point. Once we got the point formed, you tapped it. Once you created the finial, you didn't hit as hard. But when you're drawing metal out or fulling it out, hit that thing, hit it hard. Hit that material really hard. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. We're going to try to have content out every week, hopefully on Saturdays, but we're still working out the exact day because this is all new to us. But hit that like and subscribe button, and God bless, and I pray you have a blast blacksmithing, getting started blacksmithing, and keep hammering.